Good morning, members. Good morning to the officials as well. This is the meeting of the Subcommittee on issues relating to the support of persons with disabilities. First, Item 1, provision of employment training and support for persons with disabilities and the employment of persons with disabilities in the civil service. The officials joining us are Mr. Ho Kai-ming, Undersecretary for Labor and Welfare, Mr. Fletch Chen, Commissioner for Rehabilitation, also from the LWB, Ms. Alice Yeung, Principal Assistant Secretary from the Civil Service Bureau, Ms. Maggie Leung, Assistant Director from the Social Welfare Department, Mr. Jack Lau from the Labor Department. So can we first invite the Undersecretary to walk us through the paper? Thank you. We're here to brief members on employment support and employment training for persons with disabilities, as well as the government's employment of PWDs. The government is committed to implementing various measures to promote the employment of persons with disabilities, enabling them to engage in productive and gainful employment in the open market based on their abilities. The main measures include job matching services, providing allowances for employers and persons with disabilities, strengthening employment support and vocational rehabilitation and training services, and offering grants to non-governmental organizations to set up social enterprises, etc., to create more opportunities, that is, job opportunities and on-the-job training for PWDs and unleash their potential. To support the employment of PWDs, in the 2024 policy address, the Chief Executive proposed measures to enhance sheltered workshops and the integrated rehabilitation centers. So based on the areas of interest and abilities of PWDs, those centers will help improve these people's chances for employment. The government will also take a range of measures to promote the setting up of social enterprises and also set up the Caring Employer Medal to recognize employers hiring PWDs. The government, as an equal opportunity employer, is committed to eliminating all forms of discrimination against PWDs. Now, for applicants who declared their disabilities while applying for a job in the civil service, the Civil Service Bureau has put in place appropriate measures and also issued practical guidelines to bureaus and departments to ensure that applicants with disabilities will get equal opportunities in the recruitment process. Apart from the LWD, SWD, we also have people from the CSB. We welcome comments and questions from members. Thank you. Thank you. Undersecretary. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. Let's start with we have ample time today, so let's do 4 minutes per member. Questions and answers inclusive. We start with Reverend Peter Kuhn. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just then, the Undersecretary told us about the measures about equal opportunities. I welcome that. But is equality good enough? We get it. Equality is good. Still, PWDs are still at a disadvantage compared with their able-bodied peers. So will PWDs get extra points, or can they get extra opportunities so that they can serve the community in different positions? Ms. Maggie Leung. Thank you. As the Undersecretary said, the government is an equal opportunities employer. We strive to eliminate all forms of discrimination. We stick to fairness and openness. We welcome applications from PWDs for civil service jobs. For applicants who declare a disability, we have in place practical measures so that these applicants get an equal opportunity in the recruitment process. In the open recruitment, we get a massive amount of applications. We look at the applications, we screen them, we shortlist people for the selection and interviews. When an applicant with disabilities meets the basic requirements, they can skip the selection. They go straight to the interview. When an applicant declares their disabilities, we check with this applicant whether any assistance or accommodation is needed, and then we make changes to the interview process accordingly. Say for someone with dyslexia, These people may need more extra time for exams, or for the visually impaired, they need larger screens or braille or extra lamps. We try to give help. Now, for people with hearing impairment, they prefer written communication. Our departmental staff will give support as much as they can. When the selection panel thinks an applicant with disabilities is fit for certain responsibilities of a post, even if this applicant cannot meet all the requirements, that recruitment panel can still consider this applicant. Now, what does fairness mean? Does that mean assistance or priority? We do have such measures in place. Now, for applicants with disabilities who fit the bill, when this applicant with disabilities is just as good as other able-bodied applicants, we give priority to this applicant with disabilities. We put applicants into different groups. And in one group, when this applicant with disability meets the requirements, that person gets priority. So I hope that answers the members' questions. Dr. Teck Chi-yun. Thank you, Madam Chair. Having a job makes a huge difference in life for persons with disabilities. They want to work. They don't want to just stay at home and have nothing to do. But they have limited options in career. The paper covers many measures, but the government's resolve does not go far enough. We see rhetoric without enough actions. That results in the low employment rate of PWDs. Let's take the paper today. It's just 1.5% for PWDs hired by the government. It used to be 1.47%. We are better now, but there was a time when the rate was 2%. So here are my questions. The government failed to set an example. The government stresses it is an equal opportunities employer, but just 1.5% of the strength of the civil service. In South Korea, that number is 3%. So we are falling behind international peers. That shows we lack resolve. We are not leading by example. The support services for PWDs also do not go far enough. We have the selective placement division. From what I know, the SPD works mainly on job placement, and then there will be post-placement follow-up for 6 months. But the SPD waits for people to approach them with questions. And then you also have the counseling scheme for persons with disabilities. Contrast that with Taiwan and Japan, where they offer comprehensive services. The services cover the work environment so that the PWDs can go as far as their potential takes them. Their services there also covers interpersonal relationships and managing emotions. In Taiwan and Japan, they offer proactive services, a full spectrum of services, instead of waiting for people to approach them. So the support here does not go far enough. Now, life planning. At the secondary school stage, we stress career or life planning. Do we have special measures for students at special schools or students with special educational needs? Life planning can make a bigger difference. Can we have more training or more training following graduation from such schools? So here are my suggestions. First, we need a key performance indicator. You need to hire enough PWDs making up 3% of your strength. At listed companies, it's 2%. Our state leaders stress that businesses should play a greater role in corporate social responsibility. So can we make that 2%? And for government-subvented organizations, including schools, hospitals, and social welfare organizations, they get public money, so they should meet that 2% goal. And then at a certain time, we should legislate. We should have a quota system. In the mainland, in Taiwan, in Japan, They have done it. Why can't we follow the same practice? Now, we also need workplace mentors. You cannot just wait for people to approach you. My third suggestion is about life planning. At normal schools and special schools, let's do life planning so that these students can land a job in the future. Mr. Fletch Chen. Thank you. Can we switch on Mr. Chen's microphone? I thank Dr. Tick for his questions. The government has done much on this front. We do have the resolve. Of course, we can always do better. The Selective Placement Division of the Labor Department covers more than just job matching. I will invite my colleague from the Labor Department to tell us more in a moment. On life planning, we also work with the Education Bureau on that. Most students with disabilities or SCN stay at mainstream schools because we take this integrated approach. It's integrated education. So that covers life planning. When students learn more about the different jobs available, we will be in a better position to offer support. Such work is already ongoing, so we try to consolidate the resources to do even better. So I invite my LD colleague who will tell us that the Selective Placement Division is not just about job matching, but of course, there's always room for further improvement. Mr. Jack Lau. I thank Dr. Tick for his question. As the Commissioner said, the Selective Placement Division takes a case management approach to the work. Our officers at the division arranges a career consultant for each applicant. It's a full range of services. So before job seeking, we do career counseling to tell the applicant about the jobs on the market, and then job matching follows, and then referral to employers follow, and then you have interview. There's also post-placement follow-up, usually 6 months or 1 year in some cases. So we're not passive. We're not just waiting for people to approach us. That's just not the case. Throughout the job seeking process, our consultant stays in touch with the employer. So we visit the workplace. PWDs tend to struggle with adapting to the workplace, especially at the initial stage. So at that point, we talk to the PWD and the employer about the potential issues at the workplace. We also work on adaptation. The PWDs may be very capable. They can handle 90% of the tasks, and they're just struggling with maybe 1 or 2% of the tasks. There, we can arrange accommodation. Dr. Tick suggested an adaptation or accommodation officer. That's exactly what the career consultant is already doing, and we're going in depth in the work. Members, please be mindful of the time limit. Please allow time for the officials to give you a response.
Mr. Stanley Lee, thank you, Chair. It's difficult for PWDs to find jobs. If they have a stable career that will alleviate their financial burden and that has a positive effect to our community as a whole, There are only 1.5% of employees in the government that are PWD. There's room for improvement. The administration replied by saying that some PWD applicants cannot meet the basic requirements of government jobs. I wonder what these basic requirements are. How come they don't meet those requirements? Let me give you an example. I drive to the mainland, and when I cross the border, an officer used a infrared laser gun to point to our forehead and take our temperature. I think that PWDs can take up such kind of positions because it's easy. The problem is whether the government is determined enough to help the PWDs. The 1.5% level is too low. Second, have you found if there are any job opportunities in the government for PWDs? I think that we can have PWDs take people's temperature at the cross-boundary control points. I think that PWDs are capable of taking up such positions. Second, paragraph 6 regarding stepping stone initiative. So if the PWD get the $500 per month subsidy, will that affect their qualifications to get CSSA? Will the subsidy be exempted from the means test? These are the questions that I get from PWDs. Thank you. Undersecretary. I'll ask Ms. Yuan and the Assistant Director to take those questions. Ms. Yang, thank you. Regarding the 1.5% figure, the Civil Service Bureau announced the PWD applicants that we take on every year. That is affected by the establishment and the number of applicants that vary from year to year. We have to have the PWD applicants voluntarily inform the government that they are someone with disabilities. So 1.5% is the lowest figure that we are aware of. We don't have a plan to set a upper or lower limit on the hiring of PWDs. We treat all applicants fairly and equally, but we give convenience to PWD applicants and priority to them so that PWDs get an equal opportunities. Let me clarify. Just now, Mr. Lee talked about basic requirements. I'm talking about basic requirements for each and every position. For PW applicants, compared to able-bodied applicants, if they are able to meet the basic requirements, then we don't screen them out. We invite them to the interview directly. If the PW applicant meets our basic requirements and if their performance in the interview is the same as able-bodied applicant, we will give priority to recruiting them. We are a provider of public service. We have to adopt measures to hire PWDs, but at the same time, we have to make sure that they can deliver such services. Thank you. Ms. Lang, Assistant Director, please. Thank you. Let me answer the question on the Stepping Stone pilot scheme. Through Community Care Fund, we provide an additional employment subsidy of $500 per month to them that will not affect their eligibility for CSSA. Chair, I hope that the administration will take a look at all of their positions. If possible, they should invite PWDs to apply for those positions. For the position that I just talked about, they are very simple. Even primary school students could carry out those duties. I invite you to the cross-boundary control points. There are government employees who sit there and just take temperatures from passengers or tourists. Ms. Doreen Kong, thank you. I will speak for the second round. Chair, when we talk about employment for PWDs, I feel uncomfortable. I agree with what Reverend Peter Kuhn said. What does equal opportunity mean? For PWDs who want to find a job in the market, we shouldn't just offer equal opportunities to them. If PWD cannot enter a restaurant to eat wonton noodles, this is discrimination. For us to try to enable PWDs find a job, we should be inclusive. These are the two concepts that we should adopt. There are never equal opportunities in the community or on the job market. For us to enhance their employability, we have to give them more opportunities. When we give them more opportunities, that will make our society more inclusive. Let's not say that we are helping PWDs. If we are able to allow more PWDs get a job, then we are actually helping the entire community as a whole. I don't think that we have established an inclusive community for PWDs. I agree with the example quoted by Mr. Stanley Lee. I was not as upset before attending this meeting, but after hearing the administration's reply, seeing that they are the largest employer in Hong Kong, the 1.5% figure is not acceptable. Is the government allowing the PWDs to show their skills or unleash their potential? I respect the administration very much. My second point, over the world, there are difficulties for PWDs to get a job, especially in a capitalist economy. In other places, the self-employment ratio for PWDs is increasing. My second question is whether the government will assist PWDs go for self-employment. Thank you. Mr. Flet Chan, Commissioner. Thank you, Ms. Khan, for the question. I completely agree with what you said. Employment of PWD is beneficial to the entire society, as well as to the PWD. We want to be enabling and inclusive. We want to see if there are room for us to impose this concept of positive discrimination apart from creating equal opportunities. There are different types of disabilities. Some PWDs don't want to be labeled as persons with disabilities. So I don't think that we can give up on this concept of equal opportunities or just take a step forward hastily, but there are rooms for us to improve on. Ms. Khan asked if we can help PWDs go for self-employment. We do have a plan, but I cannot disclose any more details because we are still working out the details with our partners. When we have a more concrete plan, we can share with the panel or subcommittee. Thank you. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. In the paper, I see that the government tries to assist PWDs by rolling out various measures. But it seems that the government is just subsidizing or helping the PWDs by subsidizing a lot of different organizations. We have this smart government initiative. Well, even when the SMEs are subsidized, it's difficult for them to help PWD in a targeted manner. I think that the government should establish a platform, a data platform. Only by that can we help PWD in a more targeted manner. Just now, the Undersecretary and the Commissioner said that there are different types of disabilities. I think that the government the government directions is right. My first question, I'd like to ask how the government assess the applications that they receive. Given so many different types of disabilities, and the fact that some PWDs don't want to disclose their personal situation, if some employers know what PWD needs, they may retrofit their workplace to suit their conditions. We have an online platform that is LinkedIn for people to showcase their capabilities or qualifications. We cannot rely on particular organizations to create such a platform. There is another platform for barrier-free access that is subsidized by INT Fund. We are one government. I hope that we can make good use of the funds that we have. I hope that the government will create a platform to help persons with different types of disabilities in a more targeted manner that will also help the government themselves as well as different sectors in the community. Some companies want to help the PWDs. Just now, Mr. Stanley Lee talked about one example. There are some jobs that allow people to work from home. Thank you. Mr. Chan, Commissioner. Thank you. Mr. Lam is right in saying that we need to collect more data, especially those in relation to PWDs. We have a working group together with the university. They are working on the functional assessment of people with different disabilities. We assess them in terms of their capabilities in terms of official or other physical aspects. After establishing this system, we can match the requirements of an employer to the capabilities of a PWD better. And our job matching will be more efficient in the future with the platform or systems. When will you be able to share with us the details of the systems as well as the progress? I will ask the university team about the progress. As far as I understand, they've just gotten started with the project, and they are working on the project with the social welfare department. But I think that the direction is good. We want to digitalize the entire thing. We can add life planning functions in the systems.
Madam Chair, can we get supplementary information from the government in writing? So can a supplementary paper be provided to this subcommittee? Ms. Lillian Kwok, the employment of PWDs has been a structural issue. It's a chronic problem. Perceptions aside, as other members said, we want more data. I'm a teacher at a special school. I've come into contact with many students with special educational needs and students with disabilities. Let's look at the ratio of PWDs who graduated from university, but their employment rate is only 30%. So what happened to the remaining 70%? They graduated from universities, but 70% failed to land a job. We need targeted support with precision for PWDs to become full members of the community so that they can contribute to society. Special schools started in 18th century Britain because back then people thought these people required society's resources. So people thought about ways to make these people productive members of the community. That's where special education started. Now we have integrated education. There are people doing all the heavy lifting, helping these students with landing a job. 10 schools already have these programs to help students with special needs land a job. These programs have QF accreditation. Their employment rate went up from 10% to 50% because of these programs. Some such students went on to further studies. So we need a joined-up approach to planning the work. Now, there are people with hearing impairment. There's a secondary school. The school management committee members hired sign language interpreters to be in a class helping those students. Under integrated education, some students with special needs managed to get a place at universities. So how do we ensure our resources go into support for students so that there is effective life planning? During COVID, the Jockey Club had a program for students with disabilities. The work was more than job matching. There was follow-up. And then a year after the program, some PWDs remained in the job. That ratio was 60 to 70%. So that figure shows the program worked. Can we learn from that program? Can we learn that ingredient for success so that we make more effective use of resources, so that children with special needs can land a job in the future? I had this case. They went through one support program after another, but they just could not find a job. There was a post, but then that's a post for 8 students with special needs. That program did little to truly help the students. Mr. Stanley Lee mentioned carers all the time. If we can help students with special needs land a job, that will go a long way towards taking pressure off carers. I'm ready to help the government find out more about these programs that worked. Commissioner, we look forward to the member support in helping us learn about different programs. We also learned about the Jockey Club's program. The reply I gave a moment ago was based on Jockey Club's program, that is, the mechanism for assessing the functional capability of PWDs. Now, on the program mentioned by Ms. Lillian Kwok, in some of those cases, the parents were reluctant to let their children work, so the students kept returning to the program. So there's much work involved in helping PWDs. We have to let the community know that PWDs come with different skill sets. We have to work on the parents as well. So we're constantly looking for ways to do better. The government alone cannot do it. We hope NGOs can also help us out. The government is there to coordinate the work and try to foster synergies. Now, Ms. Alice Young can tell us about the internships. As the Commissioner said, we want PWDs to be full members of the community. This is in line with the government's approach. Starting from 2016, for tertiary students and also students under the Labor, Welfare and Welfare Bureau's Shine Skills Centers, we have been running a program to help these students unleash their potential. Starting from 2016, this job attachment scheme started, and then in 2018, we introduced an extra 100 slots under the scheme. Universities nominate students with disabilities for government internship programs. We arranged internship opportunities for these students so that they can build up work experience. We equip these students so that they become more competitive in the job market. The government has done much in this area. Madam Chair, I want to get a reply in. I agree, the government has done much. We are all feeling our way forward. I know the Education University is also doing its work. Parents and students are happy with the work. Parents have a concern. Parents are not reluctant to let their children work, but they're worried that their children may struggle to adapt to the real-world workplace. I agree the government has done much. But is it time for us to conduct a comprehensive review for the entire set of support services so that we make the best use of the resources to support these students? Mr. Bill Tang. I guess many members are waiting to speak for the second round. Now, for me, last year I talked to an association of PWDs in the mainland. In the mainland, they have a quota system for hiring PWDs. You need firms of a certain size. For firms that do not commit to hiring these people, they still have to offer training so that PWDs can land a job. Our unemployment rate is just 3%, which is an enviable position. We have what it takes to put in place a quota system for hiring a minimum number of PWDs such that organizations that is large enough, such as the environment, to hire a certain percentage of PWDs. So can I get the government to reconsider this? Can we start with public organizations? The government hires contractors for certain services. Maybe that's where you can get PWDs to help out. At museums, there are workers. There are job posts involving minimal contact with the public. Can we put PWDs in those jobs? The government should show us tangible progress that the community welcomes them as workers. Now, I have a question for the Undersecretary. I know the Undersecretary comes from the labor sector. There's no uniform definition for PWDs. We have come across cases of serious work injuries. Those people are in rehabilitation. They are also PWDs. They may not have a permanent injury. But then for people in rehabilitation after serious work injuries, I don't see much support. The existing measures were put in place decades ago. So are there ideas about expanding those support measures? The government takes occupational safety and health seriously, after all. So these are my questions. Undersecretary. I want to start with the last question. Now, on the question about people taking the temperature at the boundary control point, I believe that's the work given to contractors. So we would think about maybe certain tasks currently outsourced can be given to PWDs. Now, on people suffering from disabilities due to work injuries, we want them to get well, so the focus is on rehabilitation. Another department or division at the Labor Department is tasked with giving support to people with work injuries. Now, those people can expect a long wait at public hospitals. So we have a pilot scheme on rehabilitation to give these injured persons faster access to medical attention. And when these people are determined to have sustained a certain percentage disability, they get priority access to support. There's a subvendor program under the Social Welfare Department that covers these people. So first, we determine whether there's a demand. But the point is that we focus on rehabilitation. I believe that's the better way to go. Commissioner? The Association of PWDs from the mainland also visited Hong Kong. We talked to them. We have different systems. We want to find out what jobs are suitable for PWDs from them so that we can apply those principles in Hong Kong. On sheltered workshops, we're working towards this direction. We want new job types, new job functions, so that they're in line with the workers there, so that they can take on a wider range of duties. Now, we will find out more about this from the association. We'll find out whether certain job posts can be offered in Hong Kong. Next, Professor Chen Wing-Kwong. PWDs face greater hurdles at the workplace than able-bodied people. We do have this responsibility to offer support to PWDs in employment. The government has done much in supporting PWDs, but the results are less than impressive, so here are my questions. As Mr. Stanley Lee and Ms. Doreen Kong mentioned, the government hires PWDs, but they make up just 1.5% of the strength. That's a letdown. The community has been calling for a quota system for hiring PWDs. Will the government consider leading by example by setting a quota on the minimum number of PWDs in the service? If not, why? If the government does not take the lead, how can businesses be expected to fulfill their social responsibility to hire PWDs? Do we know the overall employment rate of PWDs? Do we know what kinds of jobs they're in? The last survey, when was it done? Can we have shorter intervals for surveys? Say, can we do annual or biannual surveys so that we get a better grasp of the employment rate of PWDs in Hong Kong so that we can develop better support measures? The 2024 policy address proposes the Caring Employer Medal. That's to encourage the hiring of PWDs. In business, operating costs are a real consideration. So apart from subsidies and incentives, can we consider tax breaks to offer more incentives for businesses to offer more jobs to PWDs?
Undersecretary, I'll say a few words and then I will ask my colleagues to supplement. We adopt a voluntary declaration system in Hong Kong for persons with disabilities. We have different studies and statistics with different outcome. We don't want to label persons with disabilities. For deaf people, they used to need to learn a sign language or lip reading, but most of them now install this ear implant. The reason why Ms. Yuan said that 1.5% is the lowest figure is because PWD after undergoing surgery can get into the government through normal procedures. Are we not helping them? That's not the case because the government has a lot of different schemes to assist PWDs re-enter or enter the workforce. Some members compare us to other places. Ms. Young will explain about that further later on. We'll try to allow more PWDs enter the labor market. But more importantly, we want the PWDs to enter the workforce without being labeled. There are 10 different types of disabilities. Some disabilities cannot be seen and some can be seen. For mental people recovering from mental illness, their illness is invisible. For physical disability, we may have to help them, but for persons in mental recovery, we have to respect their will and desire. If we make it mandatory for persons with disability to declare, then we will be able to see how we're helping PWDs, but we don't have such a system. That's our rationale. I know that members want to help PWDs be employed, but as we don't label PWDs, it's not easy for us to see a visible improvement in terms of our assistance to PWDs. We try to help PWDs to be employed as a normal person. Next, Ms. Chang Ha-yan. Thank you, Chair. In the first meeting, I talked about this. In March, the Legislative Secretariat conducted a study on eliminating discrimination for persons with disabilities. In the study, there is figures on PWD's employment. I know that there are different types of disabilities in Hong Kong. There are physical disabilities, emotional illness, visual impairment, hearing impairment, so on and so forth. But there is a number that is worrisome. As at 2020, that is 4 years ago, the unemployment rate of PWDs is 11%. That's 2 times or 3 times our overall employment rate. That is very concerning. For mobility of PWDs, that's another issue. It's difficult enough for us to get on a crowded bus For wheelchair users, for example, they cannot get on a bus with already one wheelchair user on it. I know what the government has done. I recognize their efforts. But at this subcommittee, I hope that we can take a step forward to see what you will do instead of telling us what you have done. I know that you are not the one to design the bus compartments, but that actually affects PWDs going to work. Can we set aside a few train compartments for wheelchair users or set aside some seats or space for wheelchair users in bus? If they aren't able to get on the public transportation, they cannot get to work very easily. The employers may not allow their employees to start working at 11 a.m. Can we help them with the mobility issues? In 2020, the median income of PWDs is lower than the overall average in Hong Kong, $14,000 per month. Are we trying to ask the PWDs not to work and receive CSSA? So can you help improve the commuting issues with public transports for persons with disabilities? Thank you. It's true there are different types of disabilities. People with visual impairment and wheelchair users have difficulty commuting. I think for bus, you're referring to wheelchair users. We have to strike a balance. Is there any room for us to add more space for wheelchair users in the bus? That may affect the overall design. We have rehabilitation buses and rehab bus. The rehab bus service can improve during peak hours. We will have another meeting on the commuting issues of PWDs. In that meeting, maybe we can talk about how service of rehab bus can improve. Apart from bus, same goes for ferry. The ramp of ferry is not very smooth. Some wheelchair users told me that they struggle getting on board a ferry. A ferry is large, so wheelchair users may tend to use such mode of transport. I think that instead of telling us what you have done, we should explore how we can improve on our assistance to PWDs. Transport is essential to encourage PWDs to go to work. Thank you. Regarding the issue with Tycoon, we discussed it in the last meeting. The subcommittee focuses on policy. For the Tycoon case, well, they're doing very well. I know that wheelchair users don't want to take the bus to Tycoon. For regular people, we may have to step on those ramp in order not to slip. Are you able to figure out ways for us to allow the wheelchair users get on the ferry more easily? Same goes for the Tycoon case. It's impossible for us to Well, it's not impossible for us to walk from the Central or Sheung MTR station to Taikun, but the wheelchair users may have difficulties in doing so. It's true that it's impossible for people to walk from the Central MTR to Taikun. There are some historical reasons to it. Maybe we can talk about this in another meeting. Thank you. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chair. Is there different meetings in this morning? I may be repeating what other members have said. I'd like to talk about the commuting issues for PWDs. Let me give you an example. For Yao Oi Estate in Tuen Mun, it is a very old estate, different from new estates. In new estates, there are covered walkway between different blocks that are very smooth. It's easy for wheelchair users to use those walkways, but for old residential estates, a lot of roads are bumpy. Wheelchair users said that they have difficulty getting around. For electric wheelchair users, they go faster and it's even more easy for them to trip. I have a question and a suggestion. Given so many old estates in Hong Kong, while the Housing Bureau is working on this well-being concept, can we build smooth walkways for wheelchair users in old estates? I'm not asking the administration to repave the ground of public estates that are old. Can we create designated walkways for wheelchair users to get around? In 2008, the government rolled out a designed handbook for wheelchair users. I think that it was updated 1 to 2 years ago, but that handbook only applies to new public estates. I'm talking about old and dilapidated estates that are resided by a lot of wheelchair users and elderly people. Will the administration consider my suggestion? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chow. There will be a session on commuting and mobility of PWDs. I will see if the administration has anything to say. Mr. Chan, Commissioner, thank you. Same with many places. For new estates and new facilities, the barrier-free access and will be done better. I will relay your concern to the Housing Bureau to see if we have such resources to improve the estates for wheelchair users. For Yao Oi Estate, quote, the roads are bumpy and it could be dangerous. Maybe wheelchair users should go to the relevant housing office to see if any assistance can be provided. Thank you. Chair, we have referred the situation or relayed the situation to the housing office in Yao Oi Estate. Chair, if members would like to speak for the second round, please press the button as soon as possible. Mr. Vincent Cheng. Please turn on his microphone. Please turn on Mr. Cheng's microphone. Thank you. I have to declare interest of a member of the Equal Opportunities Commission. I agree with what other members said. I read the LegCo and the administration's papers. The unemployment rate of PWDs is as high as 11%. That's much higher than 5.8%. I went on to the Labor and Welfare or Labor Department's website. I see a lot of different schemes, but the number of participants are not high. From 2019 to 2020, for PWDs aged between 16 to 64, there are 210,000 of them. only 90% of them are working. Some of them may not be suited to work, but I think that there is room for us to encourage PWDs to enter the labor force.
政府講咗好多。
The government has told us much about what they had done, but members would like to see goals and key performance indicators, essentially what will be done and where we can do more. The Commissioner gave a reply, but we're not happy with that, so please revisit that. We rarely discuss the success stories of PWDs at the workplace. So can we find examples of success stories? Now, I know athletes with disabilities. Mr. Chen Ho-yun is an example. He's a good example of where things worked out. So can we talk to athletes with disabilities? Can we get them to share their stories? Last week, we had a job fair for members of ethnic minorities. It's a two-way process. We encourage businesses to hire PWDs, so we get those businesses to find jobs that match the skills of PWDs. At the same time, we also get organizations to encourage PWDs to come forward. It's hard to reach these PWDs. We have to show empathy. We have to find out their struggles. So can we go deeper with this effort? I agree the Labor Department has done much, but the question is, what more can we do in the future? Mr. Fletch-Chen, the Commissioner. I thank Mr. Vincent Cheng for his questions. Now, some figures. Members highlighted the figures from 2020. Roughly 10,000 PWDs were looking for a job, but could not find a job yet. Now, for the Selective Placement Division, each year, successful match-ups. Maybe I'll invite my LD colleague to tell us more. The number is 2,000 to 3,000 per year. Not a small share. Of course, we can always do better. On the job fair, last week, the Labor Department teamed up with NGOs on a job fair for PWDs, but unfortunately, the job fair was cancelled because of the typhoon. So I now invite my Labor Department colleague to tell us more. Mr. Jack Lau. Now, for the Selective Placement Division, for the entire year of 2023, 2,840 registrations for job-seeking services. 2,406 PWDs landed a job through our service. We provide not just job matching, we also work on publicity and promotion. Job fairs are proposed by NGOs. The Labor Department get involved, we give support. So job fairs are something we do on top of publicity. Last Friday, we held a seminar for people in human resources. There were sharing sessions. Mr. Vincent Cheng mentioned success stories. We did invite employers who hired PWDs and PWDs who succeeded in their workplace. Those people share their experience. Through those job fairs, we want to encourage more employers to hire PWDs. How often do you hold the job fairs? So one job fair was cancelled because of typhoon. So will you hold another such job fair? I was supposed to attend that job fair, but then that morning we had a typhoon signal number 8, and then the job fair for ethnic minorities was also cancelled. The Labor Department teamed up with 8 NGOs for that job fair. Indeed, we want to promote success stories. So we will try to reschedule that job fair, so that will mean more work for the Labor Department. This is a major project. We have to mobilize many PWDs and also NGOs as well as employers. So we will get in touch with the parties to set up this job fair. We have to give time for our colleagues to set up the event. It's a major project. So the commissioner has a comment. The last event was August, I think. In August last time at Hong Kong U. We team up with universities for smaller scale job fairs from time to time. So I'm not pushing you, I'm encouraging you to do it. Large scale job fairs work. We want to encourage PWDs to find a job. So let's have these large scale job fairs. If we canceled one, let's find an alternative date for that. Can you have regular public promotion of the job fairs? This job fair is different from regular job fairs. Normally, the public go there to find what works for them. But for this kind of special job fair, we have essentially done the job matching beforehand, and then we invite those PWDs to attend the job fair. So this special job fair takes longer to prepare. Now it's my turn. Today we discuss employment and support for PWDs. Hong Kong is a diverse society. We have covered different kinds of support. How can the government create an atmosphere where we can reduce discrimination? Absolute equality is impossible, but how can we have an atmosphere where we can minimize the discrimination? Yesterday, I held an event about mental health, especially for young people with special educational needs. So, on career planning or life planning for young people with SENs, on building confidence for them and their integration into the community. Does the government have any plans? There are different kinds of disabilities. I agree. There are less than visible forms of disabilities. So there are young people with special educational needs. What's the government's approach to support services for them? There are smaller social enterprises. They're working on this. They have told me when you train young people with SEN or mild intellectual disabilities, you train them in cooking or preparing food. The training is tough, but the young people are willing to do the work. Not every NGO can manage this because this is a challenging task. Each person is unique in their strengths and weaknesses. We already have smaller social enterprises working on this. Can we promote such efforts? How do we minimize the discrimination so that these people can feel we are an inclusive society? We are a diverse community. Inclusiveness matters. Now, we have seen restaurants rejecting the wheelchair-bound because of space constraints. That's absurd in Hong Kong. So can the government tell us more about that? Now, I turn to existing resources. Sheltered workshops. I know the scope of job functions is under review, but what about the pay? Perhaps we can enhance the skills of people who currently work at sheltered workshops. Can we help them move on to other job functions on top of car washing? Can we enhance their skills? Undersecretary. A brief response from me, followed by my colleagues. Madam Chair, you made a good point. Car washing is not a bad option. PWDs also work on bookbinding. Now, I've seen some success stories at sheltered workshops, such as leather making and making handicraft. The tasks are suitable for people with autism because the work requires attention and concentration. I went on this visit with Mr. Sunny Tan. So work involving prototyping, the making of prototypes, may be suitable. But the trouble is that those factories don't get enough orders. Mr. Sunny Tan is from the textile and garment industry. So we can talk to him about whether we can have some kind of matching in that industry. Assistant Director, Ms. Megillah, at sheltered workshops, we rolled out an enhancement scheme last year. It's a 2-year pilot scheme. The goal is to help these trainees who want to assess their capability and enhance training. For PWDs with potential, some of these people may come with mild or medium intellectual disabilities. Instead of assigning tasks to them after receiving job requests, we want to take a more individualized or personalized approach to training. Some PWDs may prefer baking or making coffee, working as baristas. We want these PWDs to pick up skills through training, and then they can support themselves in an open job market in the future. We want to regularize this scheme next year so that all sheltered workshops will be covered. We want to have integrated training at sheltered workshops. We want this assisted employment approach to be applied in those places. Speaking for the second round, so each member will get 2 minutes, questions and answers inclusive. We start with Dr. Tik Ji-Yue. Thank you, Madam Chair. 11 members spoke on the first round. The officials know what we are after. We have expectations of the employment level of PWDs. We are let down. As the Commissioner noted, there is much room for improvement. There's more work to be done after our meeting today. Can we get the Commissioner to talk to different organizations? Pre-employment and on-the-job training matter. Can we also do better with counseling? We also need businesses to get involved. Finally, we need public education. We can make a difference in these areas. The core issue is job opportunities. We want a minimum percentage of PWDs at the government. That way, the government sets an example, it leads by example, and that can make a difference in the community. So my question for the Civil Service Bureau is, we want the government to lead by example. Can we have a quota? We're now at 1.5% of the strength. Can you set 3% as your key performance indicator? Does the government have any plans to legislate for this quota? Can we get an update on this idea?
Ms. Yan. So my question is for the Civil Service Bureau. As I mentioned, 1.5% is the lowest figure. As I've said previously, some disabilities are not visible. Regarding the series of measures that we have equal opportunities initiatives and priority recruitment for PWDs. Under such circumstances, we don't have a plan to set an upper or lower limit for the recruitment of PWDs. Don't want to label them. Even for internship programs of the government, we see applicants choose jobs that don't require them to disclose their disabilities. We don't have a plan to set any limit. Thank you. Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. Sorry. Commissioner? Sorry, Ms. Kong. I completely agree with the 4 points put forward by Dr. Tick. Next, Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 11 of the paper is about how the ERB Employees Retraining Board assists persons with disabilities in joining or rejoining the job markets by providing more than 60 placement tied or skills upgrading training courses. I looked up the ERB website for courses targeting PWDs. They don't amount to 60. Courses for PWD amount to less than 10, including counting skills, cha chan tang, training, floor arrangements, English courses, so on and so forth. How did you come up with the 60 courses? As for the Shine Skills Centers, set out in paragraph 10 of the paper, I wonder how many PWDs are trained in these centers in recent 1 or 2 years, and how many of them are able to be employed in the government or non-government organizations. Commissioner, Mr. Chen. Thank you, Ms. Kong, for the question. Regarding the courses provided by ERB, as I mentioned, we don't label them as courses for PWDs. Some types of disabilities are not visible. There are more and more people recovering from mental illness. They are very sensitive. So we don't put it in the title that those courses are just for persons with disabilities. And in fact, some courses are not tailored just for PWDs, but we welcome PWDs taking those courses. And in reality, there are a lot of PWDs taking those courses. As for the Shine Skills Centers, we are training 1,060 PWDs. What about employment figures? I will supplement in writing because the figure is different for different courses. Chair, I just would like to add one thing. Just now, the commissioner said that they don't categorize courses. But the truth is that some of the courses are set to be just for people in mental recovery, and some courses are tailored for persons with disabilities. How come there are labels to some of the courses than there aren't from some other courses? Can you check your website after the meeting? Commissioner, please give us the relevant information after the meeting. Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Chair. I know that there are high-functioning SEN children who don't go to special schools and manage to graduate from mainstream schools. I didn't plan to talk about this, but in terms of the quota system, given the low employment rate, I hope that the government will consider it. Only 3% of PWDs graduating from universities can get a job. How come those people aren't able to get a job? I think that they're capable to do so. I've looked up some figures. In the mainland, it is said that the enterprises should hire no less than 1.5% of PWDs. For Taiwan, for companies more than 34 employees, they should hire no less than 2%. Even for university enrollment, there is a requirement of 10% of PWDs. Japan, no less than 21% for departments more than 56 staff. For private organizations, the lower limit is 1.8%. I know that different cities different. We are not trying to label them, but we want to help them in a targeted manner. And we respect their uniqueness because every person is different. Some colleagues are in glasses. I will not discriminate against you just because you're in glasses. We have to assist different PWDs in different ways. If you're short-sighted, you may need a pair of glasses. Say for me, I have presbyopia. I need a different type of glasses. So I hope that there will be a mindset change in the government so that we can become more inclusive. That is very important. Thank you, Chair. Just now, some other members ask if the administration will consider setting up a quota systems for the recruitment of PWDs. Ms. Young, thank you. As I've said, we have a number of schemes, initiatives to help PWDs. We provide convenience and accommodation to PWDs when we hire them and during the recruitment process. We don't mandate PWDs to declare their disabilities. We don't think that that is what they want, and we have to be careful. Chair, we all share the same concern. Some parents of PWDs don't want to disclose the disabilities. I know that it's difficult to change, but I hope that the administration will look into it after the meeting. As so many countries are imposing such a quota systems or lower limit, can't we learn from them? Maybe we don't legislate the systems, or maybe we encourage the government departments or private sector to meet certain KPIs. Thank you. Thank you. That concludes this section. Now we move on to the next item, that is community support services for persons with disabilities. Members may refer to CB bracket 11488/1024 bracket 03 and CB bracket 11488/1024 bracket 04. Now I will ask Undersecretary for Labor and Welfare to brief us on the paper. Thank you, Chair. The government has all along tried to assist persons with disabilities in developing their social capabilities. Through subsidizing different NGOs, we provide a series of caring and assistance services, including center-based services and home-based support services to enhance their capabilities of the carers and alleviating their pressure. In the 2024 policy address, the Chief Executive announced the establishment of 14 different integrated community rehabilitation centers that combine the services of community rehabilitation day centers with home-based support services with a view to providing more flexible support for persons with severe disabilities living in the community. Together with the Social Welfare Department, we will be happy to take questions and listen to members' views. For those who would like to put questions, press the button. Each member will have 5 minutes. Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you. It is in the paper, it is said that through the home care services for persons with severe disabilities and integrated support service for persons with severe physical disabilities, personal care, nursing care, and rehabilitation training will be provided to persons with severe and moderate disabilities and home-based support services alike, offering some 3,550 and 900 service places respectively. So how many applications do you receive, and do we have enough service places, and how does the administration assess the quality of the service provided? Is there a feedback system? Second, regarding the integrated community rehabilitation centers, some PWDs said that the services provided there are not sufficient. The small group activities are entertainment in nature. They don't teach life skills. So how do you assess the content of service provided by the District Support Centers for Persons with Disabilities, CSDSC? How do we help these centers improve their services and teaching of life skills, for example? Ms. Leung, Assistant Director, please. Thank you, Ms. Kong, for the question. For home care service for persons with severe disabilities and integrated support service for persons with severe physical disabilities, ISS, these are the schemes that we have through the subsidy and service agreement. The service providers have to provide a certain level of service, and they have to meet certain criteria. As you can see in the paper, these schemes offer 3,550 and 900 service places. The usage rate is about some 90%. We have a lot of persons with severe physical disabilities that need such services, so we will increase the service places in the future. As for DCS or DSC, apart from entertainment activities, we have physiologists and occupational therapists that help PWDs exercise. Some people may think that these PWDs go to the centers to play, but actually we are trying to help PWDs exercise their muscles, and we do have equipments in the centers to allow PWDs undergo physical exercise. We need to train our staff continuously because there is turnover. Some newly recruited staff may not be able to meet the needs of certain PWDs. We will look into that after the meeting. We'll see if we need to provide further training to our staff. Maybe different DSCs should share their experience with one another more often. Next, Dr. Taek Chi-yun, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chair. I welcome the 14 new DSC as proposed in the policy address. I wonder if there is a timetable for the commissioning of such centers. Having a case manager is a great idea, but how do we cater to the different characteristics of different districts? I hope that you will listen to the views of frontline workers. In the first agenda item, we talked about employment of PWDs. Hopefully, in these centers, we can provide occupational training and support for family members. That's my views on the integrated centers. I would also like to talk about drone technology. The government has allocated $1 billion, $750 million have been spent. There's still some money left. It is said that 680 rehabilitation organizations have been subvented to rent or procure over 5,000 technology products. After spending the money, what is the effectiveness of the scheme? Some rehabilitation service units don't really use the products that they procure. How do we make sure that after spending the $1 billion, there is an advancement to our local drone technology? I wonder if you have such an idea. Do you know how effective the funding allocation is? I hope that the effectiveness can be sustained. Thank you.
Ms. Maguilar, I thank Dr. Tick for his questions. First, the integrated community rehabilitation centers. Different community support services are available. There are home-based services. There are also center-based services. But these services do not necessarily form a coherent whole. That's why we set up integrated community centers. This represents an integrated approach to supporting people with disabilities. In the third quarter of next year, we will regularize the 2 ICRCs because by then we will have built up certain experience. We cannot apply this approach across the city overnight because that involves integrating existing centers and services, and this will be tricky. Our plan is to put in place these 4 ICRCs over the next 3 years. That process involves integrating existing services and centers. We will take a case management approach, and this will be personalized services. Say it's someone who had a stroke. This person has mobility impairments. So in the initial stage, that person will need more home-based services. So in that case, we will start with home care. And then after a while, this person can move around, then they can go to a center for the services. There will also be a personal care plan for each person. Based on the progress of their recovery, we can design the services needed. So there may be multisensory training. Different interventions are involved. We look at how the person is doing, and then we adjust the personal care plan accordingly. I thank Dr. Tick for bringing up the ICRCs. At those centers, there will also be support for carers. Home-based respite is available, but we also train carers on how to look after someone with serious disabilities. What about career counseling? That's not the focus of these centers. These centers are for people with serious, severe disabilities. So these centers are more about caring. For stroke patients, they may want to re-enter the job market. We have seen success stories. With training, these people manage to find a job again. But here, the centers are about personal care. Madam Chair, with your permission for me to overrun a bit, at these centers, we adopt the ICF framework, and that's the International Framework on Functions. So this is people-centric. We respect the person's wishes. This person may want to get back to their workplace. The therapist will design a care plan so that over time, this person can pick up the skills and regain the functions for their old job. What about gerund technology? Gerund technology. Many rehabilitation units have applied to the INT fund to purchase items. Care homes may be looking for ways to save manpower. There are medication dispensers that are machines that can reduce the need for manpower. Using a machine makes this dispensing process less error-prone. After all, residents at care homes have to take their drugs strictly according to the instructions. At day centers, virtual reality is needed and used to train PWDs with their sensory functions. Some PWDs may be loath to exercise, but these smart devices make PWDs more comfortable with exercising, and that's good for their physical well-being. On measuring success, we do require those units to provide information on the number of people who use the devices. We want the service providers and the families of those PWDs to give us feedback. Next, Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you. I want to commend the government's work on the information portal for carers. Many carers found the portal helpful. So that's great work from the government. Now I turn to something else. It's about community support. At the last item, Ms. Chen mentioned the need for a joined-up approach. We lack a joined-up design for a barrier-free community. In 2018, the government worked with the HKCSS about a device, lifting device, for the wheelchair-bound to navigate stairs. At some older buildings, even with lifts, not every floor is covered by the lift. With those lifting devices, the PWDs had an easier time going out, but then that scheme ended. So the people wondered where people can find support when the wheelchair-bound want to go out. Say these people may want to join their family members for a meal outside, but they cannot rent those lifting devices. They cannot buy a lifting device and have that device at home because they don't go out every day after all. We need targeted support from centers. We lack comprehensive barrier-free facilities, so can we think about ways to make life easier for PWDs? In one district where I served, it took me 3 minutes to go down the stairs. But it took me 40 minutes to get down to go to my destination because I had to take the slopes. Much of Hong Kong has a hilly terrain. So can we find some such lifting devices? These devices are cheaper now, and can we get care teams involved as well? Let's keep up the good work. Thank you. We will be looking at these lifting devices for wheelchairs. There are many old buildings in Hong Kong without lift. That makes life hard for the wheelchair bound. We're exploring different technologies such as exoskeletons. When the China Disabled Persons Federation visited, we had a chat. The mainland is ahead of us in technologies for PWDs. Exoskeletons may be handier than wheelchair lifting devices, but we still have to look into whether those exoskeletons meet our requirements. We will keep looking at technological solutions to facilitate mobility for PWDs. Thank you for bringing up the CDPF. I met with them too. There were just 3 wheelchair lifts back then. Now we have better technologies. The technologies are also easier to operate now. So can we get care teams involved? You don't need very specialized expertise. It's not physically demanding after all. Care in the mainland is focused on larger areas. When we apply that to Hong Kong, we can make life easier for our local residents. Commissioner, anything to add? No. It's now my turn. Now, on wheelchair lifts, I had cases involving people requiring wheelchair lift. I know care teams are struggling with the use of wheelchair lift because you first need an occupational therapist to train the care team member, and then you need at least 2 people, the care team member plus a family member, to operate that wheelchair lift. Now, I turn to community support for PWDs. There are new service places under the current schemes. We have the integrated community rehabilitation centers, and then we have the home-based services for persons with severe disabilities. There are also peer support posts, extra posts. Now, for the home care service for persons with severe disabilities, when the first service first came out, some people did not come forward because of fee concerns. Different fees applied for different support services, for home modifications, and also support services for the physically frail. So do we know whether there are people who are deterred from accessing the service because of the fees? Now, on respite services, we now have the 182, 183 hotline. Carers of PWDs now have easier access to respite services. Do we know the uptake of respite services for different kinds of people, people in mental recovery, people with medium or severe disabilities? I've come across carers of people with severe disabilities complaining that they're still struggling to access respite. Are social workers expected to call each center one by one, or is there a faster way for the parents of PWDs to access respite? Now, emotional support is also an area I want to discuss. The carers of PWDs also need support. there are people in mental recovery. Their carers struggle with emotional issues of their own or even physical issues. You look after someone 24/7. That's very mentally taxing. So on support for the carers of persons in mental recovery, what support is there? For the carer support centers, can we offer a coffee break or tea break or other support measures for carers? Thank you.
Ms. Lan, Assistant Director. Regarding the fees issue, when we establish the integrated rehabilitation centers, we will look into the problem. With the difference in terms of fees, the PWD will offer cheaper options. We will integrate with existing services so that we can standardize the fees so that PWD don't have to go to different service units to receive different service. We will also look into the fees issue. Second question relating to respite services. Across Hong Kong, there are over 650 residential and day respite service places in different areas. But why are there still people saying that it's difficult for them to locate service places? Well, that's because there are different types of disabilities. For them to find a service place that match their needs and near their homes, we'll have to see if there are vacant service places that suits their needs. We have improved the vacancy inquiry system for residential respite services for persons with disabilities. So in the same vacancy inquiry systems, PWDs can look at the vacancy rate of designated places and casual vacancies. At the information gateway for carers, we provide such hyperlinks and information as well. We understand that not all carers can look up information online, so through different channels, we ask the service providers and users to make good use of our designated hotline 182 183. We also work with service operators to see how we can help these cases through the designated hotline. We want to help carers identify day and residential respite services places. Usually within the same day, the hotline can help these users identify service places. Regarding mental support and psychological support for carers of people in mental recovery, as we all know, people in mental recovery may have different symptoms at different stages. When they show symptoms before visiting the doctor, their family members may not know how to deal with them. So we have a parents, relatives resource centers. There are 17 such centers across the territory currently. One of them is for persons in mental recovery that is located in East Kowloon. Next year, we will establish 4 more parents, relatives resources centers dedicating to people in mental recovery. They will be located in different districts across the territory. We want to enhance support to parents and relatives. Mr. Chen, anything to add? No. I have a question for the director. Do you have a number regarding how many respite service places has been used. As for support for family and relatives, I hope that you will enhance its transparency and step up publicity and promotion. We have proposed this to the Undersecretary. We have to eliminate discrimination, but maybe the government and the business sector can co-organize some events so that grassroots people, middle-class people, and well-off people will know where they can seek help from for mental services in the public and private sectors. Thank you. Next. Second round, 2 minutes, Dr. Tick. Thank you for allowing me to speak for the second round. I would like to talk about drone technology. The government has dedicated some $2 billion in 2 rounds of subsidy. I hope that the social welfare sector can enhance drone technology application in the sector to improve lives for elderly people. After allocating fund to an organization and the fund has been used up, the organization has no resources to continue the initiative. I hope that the fund provided by the government will kickstart certain initiatives. The government just talked about a medication dispenser, machines. After procuring the machines, we should be able to use it for a prolonged period of time. And maybe we should ask all the RCHEs to purchase such machines. I don't want this $2 billion allocated to become some sort of firework. I hope that there will be sustained effect to the fund allocated by the government. Undersecretary, Mr. Ho. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Tick, for the suggestion. Of course, we want to see sustained results. But some products are not as effective. For some large RCHEs, the drug or medication dispensary machines may be useful. But for the 1,000 RCHEs and a few hundred RCHDs, the scale are not large. Is it more easy for them to hire a health worker to dispense medication, or is it easier for them to procure the machine to dispense the drugs? It may be easier for them to hire a health worker. If the products do not really alleviate the workload of the health workers, they may choose not to procure the geotechnological problems or products. We want to alleviate the pressure of the sector, and we want to enhance our service quality. These are our goals. For the second round of the fund, we allow the sector to apply for further funding. Let me share with you an idea. For large homes, maybe they can procure such products. We don't have to discuss these in too much details. I just want to give you an idea. Thank you. We have concluded this item. Third, any other business? The next meeting has been determined. That is on the 17th of December 2024, Tuesday, 10:45 a.m. We will discuss education support services for students with disabilities or special educational needs and medical needs of persons with disabilities and medical services for them. Any other business from members? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.